This is absolutely terrible news for any crypto bear. Anybody who's sold their crypto, anybody who's thinking about their crypto, take a look at this. What we are witnessing right now is extreme levels of capitulation. What that basically stands for is a lot of people are giving up right now. How is that being showcased? Well, Bitcoin realized losses. These are people realizing or basically selling their coins at a loss. Have surged to levels that we've last seen since the whole FTX debacle, since the whole collapse of a freaking huge crypto exchange. One of the worst events ever in crypto. For, in reality, basically nothing, right? Because what's really causing us to go down right now? With short-term holders, people who are here for not too long, driving the bulk of that capitulation, and the scale and speed of these losses reflect a meaningful washout of marginal demand as recent buyers unwind into the drawdown. So to break that down, what this basically showcases is that a lot of people are selling their coins at a loss, and it's mostly people who just entered the crypto market. And so two things become apparent, or it's what everybody's talking about. The whales, they're not really letting it go on their coins, especially not at a loss. And the veterans are not really worried here in this dip. It's mostly newcomers, it's mostly people who bought quite recently. Now, I will add to that I posted some short clip videos over the past couple of days. And I made a joke somewhere saying, imagine you just start crypto on October 9th. You see a mass capitulation event a day after, and then it's just 2 months of down. And what I realized from watching that, the comments, I guess, come in after that, is just how many people started crypto because of the 10th of the 10th, because of that mass liquidation day. And I want you to understand as well that because of that day, all the news surrounding it has made people have an extreme downward bias, and it's kind of hard to break. But, by the way, if you've not pressed that like button yet, make sure you do so. And let me show you something here real quick. When you start looking at the numbers, what we have seen right now in terms of capitulation, in terms of people giving up, if you compare it to earlier in October, even when we saw that massive decline or massive crash on the day, when you start breaking it down, the levels of capitulation that we are seeing right now are very much unprecedented. And realistically, every single time that Bitcoin, and just take a look at this, right? Every single time capitulation saw a massive spike like this, it sparked out, or it turned out to be a local bottom. Right there, right here. Again, just keep looking through, right? Right there yet again, right there yet again, right there yet again. Every single time this one-to-one works. Right there again as a local bottom just before a massive surge. Here again, you can see local bottom in BTC, massive surge afterwards. Does not necessarily mean it's going to be, the groundbreaking surge, but it was a local bottom. Right here again, and right now, I'm going to say this one was one of the little bit odd ones out, depending on how exactly far this moves up. I don't have a freaking ruler to point at the exact number right there. Then again, this could have actually, theoretically speaking, also been the 10th of October, with it, of course, being slightly skewed because of the crazy levels that we saw. And by the way, these realized losses are a very good indicator of showcasing the most important prices and most important turnaround points. For example, for XRP, quite logically so, but anyway, it is the $2 mark. The $2 level remains a major psychological zone for Ripple holders. Since early 2025, each time XRP has retested $2, investors have realized $0.5 billion to $1.2 billion per week in losses. This underscores how heavily this level influences spending behavior. And again, I also like to look at how much, relatively, people are in profit. Here we, for example, have the MVRV score. It has fallen to its lowest level since the price traded at 35,000, showcasing a significant reset in unrealized profit across the board. People have had too much time to accumulate Bitcoin above the current price. The price that we're currently trading at is relatively high versus, basically last year, 2 years ago prices, but relatively also quite low in comparison to the recent history. And again, that comes, or I should say, coincides with our earlier shared chart of where we, for example, are trading at in comparison to the 200 weekly moving average. And what this showcases is that, as it currently stands, a lot of people have most likely given up, or at least have been seeing a little bit of a reset on their profit margins. And mind you that bottoms in this score, not necessarily all the way towards, let's call it the zero, but bottoms in this score have also almost always worked along the lines of BTC. And here's a little quick pause moment if you want to quickly read about what the MVRV Z-score is all about. And again, remember, this is the stuff I've been covering on the channel for quite a long time, but I just want to remind y'all, when coins go down so hard in such a short amount of time, more people than you realize are at a loss. Matter of fact, at $126 a Solana, right? About 80% of the circulating supply that's basically, looking at the numbers, now been bought or has been turned around, is now actually at a loss, underscoring how top-heavy the market structure had become before the recent contraction. And so if you're doing bad, just realize the majority of all the Solana is right now at a loss. You're not alone. And again, here's again the short-term holders cost basis for Bitcoin on average was about $105,000 BTC. Active investors mean is about 87.1. Spot price at that point 86.5. True market mean 81.3. Realized price 56K. You start realizing that relatively these people buying Bitcoin and participants are so spread apart, so far apart. But from almost any angle, it just makes sense to consider this to be oversold. Anyway, I can sit here talking for hours about the theory. I think what I just want you to realize is how many people give up when the market goes down, especially when it goes down 30 or 40%, and most people actually end up selling at a loss. However, like I've been trying to describe over the past couple of days, and I want to keep doing day in, day out, is if you take a look at all these videos I've made over the past couple of years. This is 2024. Here, for example, we've got 2023 and actually even 2022 here. We've discussed price day in, day out for many, many years in a row. If you'd, throughout all this time, not been too worried and just continued to believe and buy that dip instead of selling at a loss, it would have always, thus far, worked out for you. If you can remember that, I think you can get really, really far. And if you're looking to trade crypto, I've got a link down below to 𝗏𝗏 is the platform I personally use for most of my trades. And even when it comes to trading, if you right now are looking at all your freaking losses, things are bad, realize that as long as your numbers are not overdoing it, it should probably figure itself out over time. If you want the most important things coming up here that could change the course of crypto, or at least short-term prices, you could probably think of the Federal Reserve interest rate decision on the 10th of December. But fundamentally, most people have already given up in realistic numbers. A lot of people have already sold all their crypto at a loss, or at least a good chunk. They've already been realizing those losses, and that's the thing you don't see. When you go out in the fields, you realize just how many people got burned on crypto, and I always find it funny, because I sometimes ask them, what did you do? Did you buy meme coin? A lot of them say no, they actually got burned on BTC or major coins, even like XRP. And it's never because the price didn't actually do what they expected. It's because the price didn't do what they expected for a little bit, and they decided to give up. If you had bought Bitcoin, XRP, ETH, as y'all know, if you had just stayed consistent, it would have all worked out for you. But people give up too quickly. If you're looking at your coins today thinking, should I buy or should I sell? Remember, I buy every single day. I've been doing that for probably 8.5, maybe 9 years now. And look where we are today. Sure, there's been days where it's been bad. Sure, there's days where I buy a bit less or days where I buy significantly more, like the past 72 hours. But still, at the end of the day, all I do is just stay consistent and realize that the worst mistake thus far I could have ever made in my 10 years here, almost, not yet, is sell. Sure, I can sell, but only at profit, right? And that profit, again, is most likely going to be bought back in when the market goes down. Now, again, if you're unlucky, or lucky, depending on how you see it, over the past couple of months, the price has risen so much that when you sell at the top and buy the bottom, you're still buying at an average higher price than what your before average was at. With XRP, for example, my average price, let's say it's 22 cents, right? I don't know what it is at, but it's extremely low because of all the purchasing I was able to do below a cent, for example. Every single time I'm buying at a higher price than before. Now, again, that's not really a problem because it's all still profit, right? But if XRP all of a sudden, if you started buying at $1, goes to $3.50, you're buying still every single day, and it goes now back to $1.30. It's higher than your original buys, but it might actually now be a bit lower than your average. And again, that's because the price has stayed at the $3 mark perhaps for such a long time. But give it enough time, again, most likely you should beat that price again and beat the high price again and beat them all. It just, again, is a matter of patience, in my own belief. I always say, if it's not going to zero, it most likely is going towards the freaking promised lands. And I'm there for it. And that's about it for this little crypto update. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. See you guys again in another one somewhere tomorrow.